here on the Gold Coast. Good morning, special guests, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Gold Coast Convention Centre for a Queensland Small Business Week event, the last of the week. Time in the future is in your hands, and where better to have it than here at the Gold Coast, where there is so much planned in coming years. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which this event is taking place, and pay our respects to elders past and present. My name is Victoria Carthew, and it's a great pleasure for me to be your MC this morning, the final day of a Small Business Week road trip for so many people. One of the roles I play, one of the many hats I wear is Channel 7's Queensland Weekender. And I was saying to a breakfast in Townsville yesterday, I was at Longreach across the weekend where I got to meet, not only see the Stockman's Hall of Fame, but to meet some wonderful small businesses, local tourist operators, and that's one of the great things I get to see in my job around the state. And I know that here on the Gold Coast there are some amazing small businesses and tourism operators doing great work. There was also a breakfast in Mount Isa on Monday. Yesterday we were in Townsville where we heard about the digital economy and how it can benefit small business, and also from an amazing North Queensland local who is making business better for so many small businesses through the use of technology, and he is doing it well and truly on a world stage. Over the past 7 days, ladies and gentlemen, there have been more than 80 events across the state, and the range and scope of topics and areas covered has been a real eye-opener. Queensland Small Business Week is an opportunity to recognise the efforts of small business owners and the many employees who help make them succeed. So I would like to begin by saying thank you to each and every one of you for being here and supporting this and getting involved today. So you can give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you for your support of Small Business Week. This morning our topic, ladies and gentlemen, the future is in your hands, will be dissected, discussed and detailed by our expert panel. A futurist, an economic whiz, a sporting and business powerhouse and a man charged with making big changes on the coast. Welcome to our special guests today, Ross Honeywell, Noel Whittaker, John Eales and Mark Peters. Ladies and gentlemen, because we do have a lot to get through today, no one better to give us an insight into small business and the impact it's having in this state than the Minister for Tourism, Major Events, Small Business and Commonwealth Games. She's been traversing the state also talking all things small business. Please welcome the Honourable Jan Stuckey MP to the stage.
Thanks so much, Victoria, and I am very impressed with the enthusiasm that you still have after what we've been doing a bit of speed dating around the state this week, celebrating our small businesses. This morning I'd like to acknowledge a number of people. Could I acknowledge first my parliamentary colleagues and who are here with us this morning. That's Michael Hart, the MP, the member for Burleigh, Verity Barton, MP, the member for Broadwater. I see Alex Douglas, MP, member for Gayden is here. To our Gold Coast City Councillors, wonderful to see you here this morning. Councillor Cameron Caldwell, Councillor Tracy Gilmore, and Councillor Dawn Critchlow. You've been everywhere this week, young lady. I haven't seen Dale Dixon this morning, but if you are here, Dale, welcome. To my Director General, Dr. Richard Eden, and the team from my department, I welcome and acknowledge you as well, and thank you for an amazing effort. It's important also to acknowledge our speakers. As Victoria said, we are very fortunate this morning to have Noel Whittaker, author and commentator, Ross Honeywell, a small business strategist, John Eales, sporting celebrity and business leader, and I did say if he stopped growing yet. He assures me he has. And to, of course, Mark Peters, the CEO of Gold Rock. So you have a lot of great people to share their insights with you. It is terrific to be home, here, my home on the Gold Coast, with small business advocates for the Queensland Small Business Gold Coast Breakfast, which forms part of our inaugural Queensland Small Business Week celebrations. It's been a really hectic week, as you've heard. There's been over 80 events since last Wednesday, the 24th of July, and we're wrapping up here today, very fittingly, in our home, the Gold Coast. I have to be very careful I don't play favourites here, don't I? The theme, though, of today's breakfast is the future is in your hands, and that's a very important issue for all businesses, especially for small businesses. The future may be in your hands, ladies and gentlemen, but the Queensland Government are also doing our bit to help you, and our collective efforts, I believe, are starting to show. To touch on tourism briefly, domestic visitation to the Gold Coast for the year ending March 2013 increased by 10% to 3.7 million visitors, while expenditure increased by 13% to $3.1 billion. During the same period, international visitation to the Gold Coast increased by 3% to 764,000 visitors, while expenditure increased by 3% to $855 million. And our golden goose is laying well again. I speak, of course, of the Gold Coast Airport, who have experienced significant growth in passenger numbers over the last 12 months. I just see Ray Stevens. I acknowledge you, Ray. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. I'll continue about our golden goose, laying very well. So our airport received an increase of 9.6% in cumulative passengers to the end of May 2013, and our international arrivals for the month of March 2013 were 19.7% higher than in March 2012. And of course, this increase has been driven by a number of factors, including the return of Qantas services to Gold Coast, the new route by Scoot Airlines, who are celebrating their first anniversary around about now and are here today in town, and increased frequency by Air Asia X. But we can't mention tourism on the Gold Coast without mentioning events. And I'm pleased to say that during 2012-13, Tourism and Events Queensland supported 15 major events and 8 regional events in the Gold Coast region. And of course, last week's announcement that the V8s are here for another 3 years is fantastic news for tourism. After all, ladies and gentlemen, it is the biggest event on our calendar in Queensland, and we have some 300 permanent jobs based here. In coming years, though, we can look forward to events of world-class stature, like the Pan-Pacific Swimming Championships in 2014, the Gold Coast Airport Marathon, of course, continuing and going from strength to strength, and the Gold Coast 2018 Commonwealth Games. These events boost our local economy through increased promotion of our city, increased visitor numbers, expanding supply chain opportunities, and the legacy that these events leave on our growing world-class city. Moving now to small business, which is intrinsically linked to tourism and events. I'll briefly outline the initiatives the Newman government has undertaken to support our goal to reduce red tape by 20% and lower unemployment to 4% by 2018. We all know that a strong economy creates jobs and that augurs very well for our SMEs. Over the past 12 months, your state government has worked hard to implement the following election promises to small businesses across our great state. We promised and delivered to pay all bills from suppliers to government up to $1 million within 30 days. We promised and did expand the payroll tax exemption threshold and to scrap Labor's useless sustainability declaration forms, to cut green tape by passing the Environmental Protection Green Tape Reduction Bill, to repeal Labor's industry waste levy, to better consult with small business through the Queensland Small Business Advisory Council in my department. And there's more than 100 other red tape reduction initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, the Newman government is unashamedly pro-small business, and we're committed to growing a strong and prosperous small business sector. Like you, we know that small business underpins our four-pillar economy and is the backbone of Queensland's economy. Small business also underpins our local economy here, and the statistics speak for themselves. In Queensland, there's some 412,000 small businesses, representing 96% of all businesses and employing almost half of all private sector workers. And the Gold Coast can proudly lay claim to over 59,000 of these small businesses. 33.5% are construction or real estate related, and professional science and technical services sector account for around 11.2%. I come from a small business background, as many of you know. So did my father, and so did his before him. Before entering politics, I ran my own small communications company, and I consulted mostly to major resorts and tourism operators. Today, I'm still the director of a very small medical practice in Coolangatta with my husband. Many of my government colleagues have come from small business backgrounds, and some are here with me today, in particular Ray Stevens and Michael Hart. They know the challenges as well as the highlights of running a small business. So I guess you could say many of us in the Newman government really do get small business. We have a genuine passion for and an intimate knowledge of it. We understand the challenges and the need for support, guidance and coaching at various times. Small businesses do, however, face a range of challenges, whether it's global uncertainty, poor consumer confidence, the burden of red tape, skills and labour supply issues, and the increasing costs of doing business all impact on productivity and even business survival. Significant opportunities have been created with the LNP's whole-of-government approach across all portfolios. Your state government is doing its bit to stimulate growth and help small business position themselves to get their fair share of work flowing from events and major projects. Through the Industry Capability Network, the government is working closely with the Gold Coast City Council and project proponents to better position small business to tap into major project supply chains. And as many of you would be aware, modern supply chains are relying more and more on the digital economy to streamline efficiencies and increase productivity. The digital economy will shape all of our futures in terms of how we run our business, how we communicate to our clients and colleagues, and how we run our lives. So with the digital economy, the future really is in your hands. And in Townsville yesterday, we experienced some Google Glasses phenomena. There's only 1,000 pairs in the world. And when you put those on one of the lens, you can actually talk to. You can tap it and you can actually get a Refidex up in front of one of your eyes. You can take a video, you can take photographs. I said, of course, being the typical inquisitive nurse, I sort of said, well, what about people's privacy? Because you actually are photographing them without anybody really knowing what you're doing. So it's quite incredible what we saw yesterday. But we also, of course, now have high-speed internet, and small businesses have more opportunity to transform the way they work, how they provide goods and services. My department is helping small business make the most of the digital economy by connecting business with Queensland digital service firms through our ICT business directory. We provide opportunities to small business to search and access government data sets via the state government's online open data portal. Mr Stevens can tell you more about that. We also provide online resources for our business industry portal, affectionately called BIP. I think that's the boy actually. You can find BIP at www.business.qld.gov.au. So our BIP will in the future expand to provide greater assistance to small business who want to enter the digital economy. Our new Look BIP successfully acts as the government's one-stop shop for business to government services, delivering a range of tools to assist business from inception all the way to expansion and onto export. We have more than 600 business customer service pathways to help establish and manage business. Some of the things you'll find on BIP are how to develop the right skills, building capacity, connecting to ideas and new technologies, accessing new markets and promoting services. I'm very pleased to say that over the last 2 years our BIP has saved Queensland small businesses $250 million in time and money. So in addition to growing our online services, the Queensland Government is giving small business a serious burst of energy in other ways. In May, we launched our Queensland Small Business Strategy and Action Plan 2013 to 15. I understand there are some copies on your table. This is a whole-of-government framework that provides a planned and coordinated approach. This is the very first coordinated small business plan in many years, and your government is committed to working with you, the business community, and our industry partners to secure the future prosperity of small business. There are 5 priorities in this plan and 32 actions. These range across 10 government agencies, an indication that it is a whole-of-government approach. As I said, today does mark the final day of our Small Business Week. We celebrate the contribution of the small businesses who make up our Queensland economy. The week has been devoted to helping you, our small businesses, have a big future through a range of activities dedicated to you. And last Saturday on the 27th of July, I hope you saw buy locally signs right across the Gold Coast, because we have been running a Think Queensland Buy Locally campaign to encourage people to shop and buy in their local communities from their local suppliers. Thanks so much for coming along this morning. It's wonderful for me to be able to address you and be a part of this. As most of you know, I'm a very true blue, proud Gold Coaster. I know that together we can and we will build a strong, resistant and successful small business sector, because we know that the future really is in our hands in this great state with great opportunity.
Thank you, Minister, very, very much. And I have to say those Google glasses yesterday were quite an experience. I quite love that you could get the Refidex up and wherever you turned, it turned with you. So there'd be no getting lost, no Refidexes spinning around. They were very, very impressive. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 guest speakers this morning for you. As I said, please feel free along the way to take and make some notes, because sometimes some of the best information we get comes from your questions. So our speakers will come to us and then take a seat. We'll have a mighty big Q&A session at the end. So as I say, there's some notes in front of you. Feel free to jot down your questions as you go, because we do have quite a bit of time to hear from our experts at the end. Small business means so many things. There's no one size fits all. And one of the speakers in Townsville yesterday was saying that talked about the goals of small businesses. For some small businesses, it's about growth. For others, it's just survival. It's about paying the bills. And I think that's why our very first guest today is such a perfect man to kick things off, because his mantra is think small. Ross Honeywood is a futurist. He's worked with some of Australia's most visible clients, including David Jones, Sony, NAB, Telstra and Myer. He's an author, 5 books, and just because he's not particularly busy, he thought he'd complete a PhD as well. He, as I said, lives by the mantra think small, but he says small businesses are by far his most cherished successes. Would you please welcome our first guest today, Ross Honeywood.
Thanks, Victoria. Refidex now, it takes me back. I left Queensland sadly, and I'm delighted to be back here and to be invited here again. I left when I was 25, I think it was just after the First World War. And as anyone would know, it's wonderful to come back. So, small business. One thing I can tell you as a futurist is that the future of business lies not in thinking big, but in thinking small. I'm going to tell you a story that will, I hope, illuminate the future, and it's a small story from the immediate past. There's a man in Melbourne, and forgive me for using this as an example, but I think it applies absolutely everywhere. It's not a matter of location, it's a matter of the principles at work. There's a man in Melbourne who runs a small business. His name is Mark Rubo, and he owns Readings bookstores. There are 6 reading stores, and the largest, still a small store, is in Carlton. Carlton is an inner urban university suburb of Melbourne, rich in the kind of provenance and personal stories that percolate into literature, plays and films, tales that define a culture. It could be New Farm or Paddington in Brisbane. You get the picture. Rubo is an intelligent, quietly spoken man. Every time he moved the Carlton store to a larger building or opened a new store in another neighbourhood, he worried. He waited for the right moment and then, usually over a glass of wine, asked his wife Wendy if they could again mortgage their house to fund the new expansion. He worried about losing his house. Mark Rubo built Australia's biggest independent book and music group, one small step at a time, by honouring the local preferences and diverse character of each new neighbourhood he went into. On one particular day, just 6 months after the global book giant Borders had opened directly across the road from Readings, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix was to be launched across the globe. Harry Potter Day for Borders was just another launch. But for Mark and Wendy Rubo, it was more personal. This was the first serious test since Borders opened, and Rubo knew it was a life and death struggle. As doors opened on either side of Lygon Street, readings, in-store events for kids and parents came alive, and the dizzying theatrics of the morning, Rubo sold a staggering 400 copies before 11 a.m. at full retail price. Over the span of the whole day, more than 1,000 customers chose not to cross the street to buy precisely the same book at half price at Borders, 50 metres away. Borders just didn't get it. They would have asked, why would someone want to pay full price for a book we'll sell them for half price? We're Borders, for God's sake. What's going on? What was going on was loyalty. What was going on was real loyalty. Loyalty doesn't come in the shape of a discount card or a coupon. Loyalty for the authenticity-loving customers of readings comes from believing in something wonderful and being thought wonderful in return. Local support on this and every other day since meant that instead of the 30 to 40% annual revenue slump that typically hits independent bookstores when Borders moved into town, Rubo was suffering only a 3%, not a 30 or 40%, a 3% drop in sales at the hands of his new giant neighbour. He told Wendy the house looked safe, just for now. About 5 years ago, I advised Mark Rubo to think really small. Instead of the typical 250 square metre store that you'd see every day in shopping malls, I told him that the future was in micro stores, maybe a fifth of the average size, with limited staff and limited inventory that was replaced as quickly as it sold. Soon after, he opened a 70 square metre store. 70 square metres is very small, in the State Library, and within 2 years it was his most profitable store. More recently, he opened a tiny store in Melbourne University's Brain Centre. Think small is the mantra for business success in the future, and it works as much for large corporations as it does for micro businesses working from home. When the GFC hit, the big banks flooded newspapers with full-page ads declaring their stability, their supersized security, a big safe place for your money. The high-value consumers of Australia, that 24% of the population known as NEOs, simply an acronym for the New Economic Order, 24% of the population, who account for the majority of all discretionary spending in the economy, just turned off. They hate big, bold pronouncements. The Neo mantra is, stop shouting, we can't hear you. Coincidentally, Carlton is the Neo capital of Victoria. Borders shouted in Carlton, and the Neos couldn't hear them. Borders went broke. The big banks shouted, and the most valuable consumers in Australia were deaf to the same noise they all made. It's obvious. One huge bank should have broken rank and elected to think small. Should have had real people telling personal stories in small, intimate voices that connected with our hearts. We know they're big and safe. What we needed to know was that they were like us, working for individual success, creating small pockets of prosperity that add up to make them a big business. On Vancouver Island in Canada, the famous Claypot Wilderness Resort charges, now wait for this, $2,000 per night per person to stay in a tent without a toilet. Set in a natural biosphere, it's extraordinary. But the Great Recession, as the GFC is known in North America, hit the small business hard. The owner asked me if offering a 20% discount would upset his very neo market around the world. And I said, not if you think small. Don't shout about discounts. Invite people to come and stay for 4 nights and tell them the first night's on us. It's still a 25% discount, but it becomes a whispered secret when you use the right language. Even if you're a large law firm, start up a new shopfront, staffed by young partners offering fully integrated enterprise law, Call it the enterprise law store, attracting small business owners intimidated by a big firm image. By thinking small, you'll not only build a new exciting business, you'll also create a client base for the future. Don't use shout words like ultimate, world-class, opulent, stunning, extraordinary. Do use whispered words like rare, unexpected, discreet, delicious, personal, surprising, discovery. Small business in the future will be tens of thousands of small voices, small enterprises creating not critical mass but critical intensity. Each of us needs to generate small waves of personal relevance. And those small waves spread from person to person, neighbourhood to neighbourhood, across streets and across cities, small eggshell voices that tell small stories and reveal an uncrushable human spirit. That's the big message for the future of business. Think small.
Thank you, Ross, very, very much. And I think books are such a wonderful example because not only do they face that sort of challenge from big suppliers, but also from technology. So what a wonderful example to give. Where I live in Brisbane, actually, we've got a wonderful local bookshop, Riverbend, and it's exactly that. I will pay more to go there because I feel loyalty to them and also to my community for what they do for our community. So thank you for those wonderful insights this morning about thinking small. Our next presenter, ladies and gentlemen, is a well-known Australian money columnist, public speaker, investment planner and best-selling financial author. You'll see him in the newspapers across the country each and every week, in the Sunday Mail, the SMH and the Melbourne Age. You'll hear him across the country on 4BC, on 2UE and 3AW. 20 best-selling books, over 2 million copies sold around the world. In 2011, he was made a member of the Order of Australia for his service to the financial planning industry. What I like best about Noel Whittaker is that he listens to people, he gets people. He's very firm with people in what he has to say, but he makes it real for them. And I'm so pleased he could join us today to give us his insights. Would you please welcome Noel Whittaker?
Thank you very much. And that was a great talk of Ross's. I was nodding. But I wonder why that's so. I guess if you look at that, this is your future. A woman under 50 on historic tables will live to 90. But those tables take no account of medical advances in the next 40 years. And all those people want one thing. They want to be noticed. When I saw Dawn Critchlow this morning, Dawn was the person who took my phone call when I had a complaint about the Gold Coast rates. And Susie Douglas did too. I mean, we want to be noticed, don't we? And furthermore, I mean, that article in the Geographic in May, the whole highlight of that was that the medical advances are enormous. At the moment in the world, there are little people. Little people cannot grow. But the genetic defect that stops them growing also means they cannot get cancer or diabetes. There's no doubt that in 40 years they will isolate the gene that stops those little people getting cancer and diabetes. In 40 years they will be behind us. So what you face is a growing number of older people who want to be special. And they do not want to be on the phone to a 1300 number, I can tell you. You know, I had a debate with Origin for months. The only way to solve it was to go to a luncheon and front Grant King, the CEO, and face to face I got him. And he gave me now a special person. I've now got my special Origin person. I had to go to Grant King to get it. I have a story. I was wandering around Circular Quay one day and I saw a nice place called the Pullman Grand Quay. I thought, I'll check it out. I went inside and I said, have you got a rate chart? And a woman about 40 said, well, I'll take you through. Oh, thank you. So she takes me through. And it was fabulous. So she gives me her card and I lost it. 6 months later, I thought I would book it. Well, now, you have to ring Accor. After waiting 20 minutes, when the phone kept saying, your call was important to us, they told me it wasn't part of their chain, though it was. Eventually, I booked it. The moment we went there, I became friends with David Brook, the concierge. I've now got his mobile number and his work number. I've now got the hotel's number. When I want to book that place now, I ring the hotel direct. I don't want to enter the other number. But another thing, recently, a speech was cancelled I forgot about. And it's Friday afternoon, oh my God, I forgot to cancel the Pullman Grand Key. Okay, well, let's hope they'll charge one night and not two. Ring them up. No, as it's you, we won't charge you anything. Now, this is called building a relationship, isn't it? 15 years ago, I've got a unit in Albatross North in Albatross Avenue. A guy, Peter, from Henderson's Professionals, knocked on the door saying, look, we want to show some people still another unit that's like yours, but it's locked. Would you mind very much if we took you through, if I went through yours? It's not a problem, it's not a problem. Next day, he comes round with a bottle of wine. Say thank you. That was unusual, wasn't it? That was 15, 20 years ago. But I got on their mailing list. For the last 20 years, Henderson's have sent me every couple of months a nice list about what's happening at the Gold Coast, prices. Now that I read them and talk about the market, last week I listed them. Guess who got the listing? Because they've spent 20 years building a relationship with me. So basically what people want is a relationship. Only small business can do it. And that's why I think we people are so special. You can do what no one else does. And it gets back to staff training. Interesting, Ross spoke about the Melbourne bookstore. My wife and I went into Chapel Street, into a shop. And my wife had that look that wise gentleman about the shop big. The girl behind the counter looked up from the magazine and said, can I help you? So what do we say? Just looking. And 2 minutes of looking, we wandered out again. And at the next stall, we got the owner. And boy, oh boy, 2 hours later, 2 bags full later, I've got a very happy wife and a big bill on the credit card. So one more slide, we have a very short time here. That is the last 20 years of growth. If you notice, the dark is the older people. Notice the way the dark's expanding? So you've got to face a situation where these are your clients, what are they going to want? And also a situation where there'll be more and more pressure on governments. And the worst thing for small business is the papers only publish bad news. Or in one paper this week, 2 full pages on why certain public service can set the speed limits by 6 or 7 k's an hour. Well, I can tell you driving down, doing 80, in the 80 k zone, I was nearly wiped out. So what you've got to do is ignore the negative media and just give personal service and think small. Thank you.
To escape that easily, Mr. Whittaker. Thank you very, very much. And do you know what's really exciting to hear? I guess the theme of what both of you have said as well is it's about people, and when you talk about those relationships, it is very much about people as well. So thank you, gentlemen, both very, very much. Our next presenter doesn't really need much of an introduction with his sporting biography because we've been here for a long lunch instead of a breakfast if I were to battle off the sporting history of this Wallaby captain. I know many of you would know him. But he also co-founded the Metal Group in 2003, has a broad range of skills and established a successful corporate career. So away from the sporting field, he's had enormous success as well. He serves as the board member of the Metal Group, GRM international quarterback, and Australian Rugby and Flight Centre. So just a little portfolio there. He's written a few books. He gets lectures around the country. He's still heavily involved in sport and has, I know, done some wonderful work with our big teams over the years. We are so thrilled he could be here on the Gold Coast with us this morning. Would you please put your hands together, Mr. John Mills.
Well, thanks, Victoria. It's great to be here this morning. And today, I want to draw a bit from some of my experience in sport and also in business. And probably, specifically some of the research that I've conducted. I know I'm here. I'm a bit shy to say I've conducted a bit of research in the company that we're with today. But one of the things I've very much enjoyed doing since playing rugby is writing. And I've had a column in the Australian Financial Review for the last 12 years. And the Australian Financial Review have one page on sport each week. I've been the columnist in that. I always think that there's two great things about writing sport in the Australian Financial Review is that we're writing rugby in the Australian Financial Review. Number one is none of the players read it. I can be pretty sure about that these days. If it was rugby league, I could be very sure about it. Rugby union, I can be pretty sure about it these days, I think. And the other good thing is that no one at the Fin feels they know more about rugby than what I do. At least they don't tell me that, so they don't change anything that I write. How I write it is how it comes across. Actually, I'll just digress for 1 second because there was one. There's been a couple of exceptions to that, but one in particular came in the first couple of years of writing for the paper. And I wanted to write an article with some comments about referees in rugby. And there's an age-old saying in rugby that starts off, very, very simple. It's not my saying, but there's an age-old saying that says that the 5 most useless things in the world are the Pope's testicles and 3 cheers for the referee. And so I started with this. And then I wrote, you can imagine what I might have written after that. And anyway, I send my articles through mid-Sunday afternoon, and if there's any issues, the sub-editor will call me later Sunday afternoon. This one particular Sunday she rang and she said, look John, I'm sorry, we're going to have to change something about your article today. I said, what might that be? And she said, that opening part about the Pope. She said, we have a lot of Catholics that read our paper and we don't want to offend them. And I went to a Catholic school. I said, look, okay, yeah, no problems, I understand. I thought about it for a second. I said, okay, let's change it to the Archbishop of Canterbury then. There was this silence on the other end of the phone. And she said, look, John, actually, we have a lot of Anglicans that read our paper. I said, okay, just take it out. One of the things after you speak, you often see people wanting to come up and say something, and you can tell if they've got a particular bee in their bonnet about something. You're never sure what it might be. But after speaking one day, I told that story, I had someone come up to me, and I knew he had something to get off his plate. And I was trying to think, what did I say today, what did I say? And he said, look, John, I wasn't happy about the start of your speech today. I thought, oh no, is he a Catholic, is he a Protestant? And he says, I'm a referee. So I apologise to any referees that are here today. But look, one of the other things I've written is 2 books, and not nowhere near the number of books our other guests here have written. But both books are focused on leadership, the lessons of leadership from the sporting world and the business world. And the first book I wrote was a sports book. It was called Learning from Legends, and the second book I wasn't very creative with the title. I called it Learning from Legends again, but it was business legends instead of sporting legends. And what I tried to garner from those people is what were the lessons that they had learned through their successes, but also through their failures. What were the lessons that we could take from them without having to go and make all those mistakes ourselves? Of course, we still go and make all of those mistakes ourselves, and that's part of the learning process. But it was fascinating to have the opportunity to listen to those people, and it really cut across the demographics of sport and business. There was individual sports, team sports, men, women, CEOs, selectors in business. There was small business, big business, entrepreneurs, people that started with 1 truck and end up with 6,000, and all these different focuses from business. And probably one of the things that there's a lot of common themes that came through that. But one of them was that there's a lot of common elements that lead to success, whether you're in small business or big business. And as Victoria mentioned, I started a small business myself. I've been involved in a lot of small businesses in different ways, and also I've had great access inside a lot of big businesses as well. And I truly believe there's more similarity than there is difference in the success stories of both small and big business. But I think when you look at it, and people can really generalise and say, small business has this great advantage of agility, and the agility you need to have in small business, and it's absolutely true. But for small businesses to truly be successful, I think combined with that agility, they also need the rigour of big business. And big business as well. I think some of the truly great and successful big businesses, they need that rigor, because when you've got to discipline 15,000 people, get 15,000 people on the same page doing a very similar thing, you need a certain rigor about what you do. But that doesn't exclude the opportunity to add some agility into that mix. And a great example of that is Flight Centre, which I've joined the board of about a year ago. And one of the keys to the success of Flight Centre is the fact it looks at itself as many, 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 many small businesses all put together. Or if not small businesses, well, it is small businesses, but also small teams put together. So somehow that big business has been able to engender the small business mindset with that big business rigor. But the opposite is true for small business. To be able to, you've got that natural agility, that ability to do things, because you haven't got the things that are stopping you from doing things. But I think one of my old teachers once said to me, he said, some of the least happy people in this world are the people who have got so many choices, and because they won't really know what they have to do. He said some of the happiest people in the world are the people who just have one choice. And they get up in the morning, they know what they're doing, they go to work, whatever it may be, they pick up their six-pack on the way home, they sit in front of the TV, sit with their family and have dinner. It's simple. And I think small business needs to be able to take some of that. They've got that agility, but being clear about what it is they want to achieve. I think probably the most common theme from all of those businesses when it came together, there's a lot of elements that led to this particular state of being. But I think the most common element and state of being in all the leaders of the successful businesses and the teams themselves, and particularly the ones that were able to be successful over time, was this element of composure. So what is composure? It was certainly a goal of ours when we played in the Wallabies. We aim to be a composed team, and we aim to be composed leaders. But composure is not something that a leader can come along. Mark can't go to his Commonwealth Games team and start banging on the desk one day and say, right, now we're going to be a composed team. It doesn't happen like that. It'll happen as a result of getting the little things right along the way. And I won't go into all those things today, but they're things that you can, as you can imagine, it's about having a plan, getting the people, getting them all aligned in the same direction, understanding what your culture is and driving towards that. And if you get that, it leads to this state of composure. What is composure? Well, to me, composure is about faith. And not an evangelical style faith, but a basic grounded sense of faith, and three levels of it. Number one, it's about faith in yourself. And as I say, a grounded sense of faith in yourself, that you know you've worked as hard as you can to be as good as you can at whatever it is that you're doing. So it's not a false bravado. It's that true grounded sense of faith and understanding of what you're doing. Number two, it's a sense of faith in those teammates around you. Now, when you're running out into a World Cup final, there's another 14 guys in the room with you, you pull it into that huddle. When you look around that huddle, you know you've got the same faith in each of those people that they have in you. That's a wonderful feeling. You know you wouldn't swap anyone in that huddle for someone who's the best in the world at what they do, because you know that person. Now, faith is not just thinking that they're the best in the world at what they do. Faith is actually knowing them and trusting them, knowing them and understanding their strengths and understanding their weaknesses. The need to do that is amplified in a small business because you've got less resources and probably resources that you need to do a greater variety of things. And then thirdly, it's about faith in the system that you have, faith in your plan. And it doesn't matter what that plan is. And rarely, actually, probably, it doesn't have to be 100% right. Unless you're maybe building a bridge or something like that, then you want it to be pretty close to 100% right. But if you're leading a business, you're much more leading through grey than you are leading in certainty. And so because of that, leading through grey, it's important to actually understand the course that you're taking and have composure and common sense around, and dedication and focus to going in that course and having faith on that course that you're going through. I'll just finish by saying I think composure comes across in many different ways, but it's important all the time. It's important in the best times. A guy was a director with a guy by the name of Ned Morgan of a business called Pure Technologies, and Nev used to always say, as human beings, we make our worst decisions in our best times, through complacency, through arrogance, through whatever you want to call it. So as composure is what keeps us level in the great times. But equally, there was a Harvard academic named Rosemary Moss Cantor, and she says all change looks like a failure somewhere in the middle. Now, how much can you all relate to that? I think all endeavour looks like a failure somewhere in the middle. Now, when you go from being 5th in the world to number 1 in the world, it's not a journey that goes like that. It's a journey that goes like that. It can look like a failure 20 minutes before the end of a 4-year journey, believe me. And but it's at those times when it looks like a failure that you need composure that can take you through those moments. And I think if you have that composure, you have that sense, it also radiates to the other people in your team, and there's no doubt that it'll leave you in a better state and a better condition to face whatever it is that you confront.
And I'm guessing from that you can see why he has been such a leader of men and why they will follow him and his run across any line. I think that was a wonderful example, John, you gave about Flight Centre, because that's another industry, travel, that's been so impacted by technology, and yet here they are still doing so well. So some wonderful examples there, and thank you very much. Don't forget to be taking some notes if you have some questions, because we have just one speaker to go. Our next presenter has played a significant role in sport development in Australia over the past decade, whether it's been through his term as CEO of the Australian Sports Commission or as President of the Australian Baseball Federation. Mark has absolutely left an indelible mark. With an extensive portfolio of leadership and management experience in tourism, events, sports systems, organisation, governance and structure, Mark was most recently, of course, the CEO of the Commonwealth Games Bid Company, which, of course, now has brought the 2018 Commonwealth Games to the Gold Coast. He's now the CEO of the Gold Coast 2018 Commonwealth Games Organising Corporation, and I'm so excited about what's in store for this wonderful city over the next 5 years. Let's whet your appetite and turn your attention to the screens. Please welcome our final guest today, Mark Peters.
Good morning. I still get goosebumps when I hear that announcement, and when we showed the visuals and much more of that around the world, people just said, wow, we want to go there. And we've been so buoyed since we've won the bid about the community attitude, not just here on the Gold Coast, but in Queensland, and importantly in Sydney and Melbourne, and the sort of acceptance of what a great friendly games, the Commonwealth Games are, and what a fantastic location the Gold Coast is, just reverberates through every discussion we have. So a lot of excitement about the Games. It will be the biggest event in Australia for a decade. The events industry is unbelievably competitive, the Minister's aware, and we have Europe, we have the Middle East now, South Korea's, a lot of the Commonwealth countries that probably weren't in the bidding world out there looking for major events, because we have to see all the spin-offs. And it's not just about a week or 2 weeks of competition. It's about what happens leading into it and what happens after it. And that's a key component of running any successful event, particularly something like the Commonwealth Games. A few stats: we have 6,500 athletes, officials here, we'll have 1,000 technical officials, we'll have 71 countries. We heard during some of the debates, and we're really grateful for the Newman government's support and the Minister's leadership and support from the local members, because this was a big task to come into government and see this thing called the Commonwealth Games, but probably just as much with a dollar sign next to it. And the support from the government has been fantastic. But it was also a great hearing during the parliamentary debates, the comment and the memories of the 82 Games in Brisbane. And that did really have a major impact on not just Brisbane, but on Queensland. our games are nearly twice as big as the Brisbane Games. And that's the impact that we will have in Queensland and in Australia. For those of us close, and we're perhaps a little biased, you know, I get to read a lot about what's happening in world sport. The Gold Coast has been talked about in the same breath as London, as Glasgow, in Sydney, Melbourne. You know, we in that stratosphere when people talk about games and impacts and things that will happen. And it's very hard to measure a lot of those intangibles. But as you would know, and some of our speakers have highlighted, it's about developing relationships, about loyalty to brand. And it's sometimes when you live in a location, you forget how other people want to be here. And so many of the people I know want to come to the Gold Coast. Sometimes we're here and we take a lot of things for granted, but I can assure you the Commonwealth Games world and the sporting world want to come here, and they're really looking forward to the opportunities. One of the challenges for us is we start very small. We have around 25 staff at the moment. We'll go to 44 by the middle of next year. We have a massive planning exercise. We will grow to nearly 1,000 staff. A month after the game, we're back to 30. So the challenges of setting a corporation up that disappears very quickly, and how you drive that is very much about us working with small business here on the coast. A lot of what we do isn't about buying. It's about using expertise. It's about going into commercial arrangements. The other thing, and it's probably not a well-known fact at the moment, and Glasgow just confirmed this, there'll be over 25,000 contractors on the workforce leading into and during the Games. There'll be 15,000 volunteers involved in the Games. They're big and they're real numbers. The sort of sectors that Glasgow have been confirming as of late is these contractors will be in transport, security, hospitality, cleaning and waste, logistics, operations, technology. We also have a whole lot of Games partners. So within government, we have the Office of Commonwealth Games Coordination that sits in the Minister's Department that coordinates across government. That's bringing all state departments to focus on how does this benefit Queensland? How does this benefit the Gold Coast? How do we utilise programs that are across government at the moment to focus on the delivery of the Games? We've got the Department of State Development that will deliver through the tender process the venues. The Commonwealth Games Infrastructure Authority that deliver the village at the Parkland site and run to the tender processes. The Gold Coast City Council have a massive role to play in city operations. The key message is, for all of us, is the city is open for business. One of the mistakes of some previous cities is they've said how the traffic's going to be bad, this is going to be bad, work from home, do this. And during the Games, the place is deserted and businesses actually suffer. That's one of the key messages that the Minister's been putting out through great initiatives like the Small Business Week, is we don't want to be closed for business. People are coming here because they want to learn about us, they want to share our culture, they want to enjoy all the things that are good about the Gold Coast and why people love living here. So all those stakeholders are part of what we will deliver at the end of the day. But as I said before, the success of these games is what happens before, what happens during, and what happens after. And if we just focus on 11 days of the sporting competition, we're all going to fail. The good news is that's not what's happening. You know, the great announcement that the Minister made with the Mayor about the bringing forward of the Aquatic Centre. The Pan-Pac swimming is a huge event. And at the moment, Australian swimming are over at Barcelona talking to China and other countries that have never been in a Pan-Pac swimming championships before. So it will be the biggest swimming championships outside of the World Championships and obviously the Olympics. That will happen next year. And that will show off the Gold Coast and create a whole lot of opportunities. And we've already seen, and WATPAC have released some recent figures, that out of the 27 of the 54 tenders that have been let on the Aquatic Centre, 63% have gone to Gold Coast firms and 96% have gone to South East Queensland firms. That's the sort of thing that will happen, and we've seen some reports in recent months about what's going to happen and not happen, and people can stand up and promise the world, but These statistics will prove that these games will be great, and this is just the start of the sort of things that will happen on the Gold Coast and importantly in Queensland, because we all benefit from such a major event. The other initiatives, talking to Phil Green, the Industry Capacity Network Workshop, are fantastic opportunities. And again, through the department, with the Minister's leadership, we're seeing the development of a whole of games procurement policy, which is really important, because it focuses on what we can do in terms of local content and local policies. The Industry Capacity Network, to me, is fantastic. It's linking small business with small business. It's linking small business with big business to take advantage of the hundreds and hundreds of procurement opportunities that are going to come up. A lot of these aren't going to come up for 2 or 3 years' time, and that's one of our challenges. But what it allows is the capacity building to happen. So you as small businesses can combine together all our procurement, and we're going through that exercise and working off what Glasgow is doing. All our procurement opportunities will be put on the government's e-tender. So you will know what's coming up. You have a chance to register the skills of your companies on the ICN, so that there's no excuse for not being involved. And then we will be running together with the department information sessions once we have all our procurement contracts in place. So these are the sort of things that will allow the opportunities to be taken up. Already in our 12, 15 months of existence, we've put 70 purchase orders out to Gold Coast companies. So in the areas of training, IP protection and advice, recruitment, printing, office planning, electrical contractors, all that work's gone out locally. Out of our staff at the moment, we only have one person not living on the Gold Coast. So the impacts of having people employed and living on the Gold Coast, that flows into they need to be in accommodation, they do drive around, they need to eat, they get involved in the community, they contribute. So it's not just about businesses associated with games, it's about businesses that are associated with people and living in what is one of the greatest livable cities in the world. And they are all the opportunities, and through the sort of activities that you're seeing and the challenges that have been put out through the small business work and what the department and the government's doing is, you can't sit back and let it happen. You've got to actually be out there, looking at the opportunities and using the expertise. And that's what we're doing at the moment. We can't deliver this by ourselves. We know that this will be a great game because there are great Australians on the Gold Coast, in Queensland, in Australia that will deliver a greater games. But if we fail, it's only because we haven't worked together for all the other benefits. And I know that's not going to happen, and the opportunities are there, and it will be a great games in a great city with great memories and great benefits for all. Thank you.
Mark, thank you very, very much, and I think that Open for Business is very, very exciting for everyone to hear in the room, and wonderful to hear about all the different initiatives that are going on with the Minister's Department and with yourself. So thank you for sharing all of those with us, and I'm sure perhaps some people might realise just how they can get involved. So ladies and gentlemen, it is over to you. We have 4 experts. You heard them all speak today. So please, you've got a good few minutes now to have a chat, and so they can share some more of their wisdom with you. So I will take some questions from the floor. And I want the first person to be the raised first. 4 people here who want your questions. So.
Hello, my name's Gordon Watson. I work for a data centre manufacturer called Datapod. My question is to our futurist guest. I'm fascinated with the future, and I guess my question is, with access to big data from government, with 3D printing on the horizon and amazing disruptive technologies that are right on our doorstep, what opportunities do you think could possibly be for businesses in this room?
That's what I like, a starting question that's very, very specific. Look, I think the future in small business, apart from what I've talked about so far, the whole online space, I know everyone talks about it, there's nothing new about it, I'm just reading the book Killing Fairfax by Pamela Williams that talks about the emergence of Seek and car sales and the real estate.com. The three of them that were once worth nothing, and within 5 years were worth billions of dollars. And I think that one of the things I would say to Mark Rubio, 5 years ago, was start an online business that's the equivalent of a bookstore, and within 2 years it will be generating the same revenue. Well, it did that in 1 year. So I think with NBN, with high-speed data, with all of the access to technology that we have, there's a huge opportunity to be in that space and to not just imagine it as another channel, but to imagine it as a really seminal part of your business. But to finish, the real word of caution is think about it as an intimacy. Don't think about it as some huge piece of technology. Think about it as one-to-one. There's a thing that large corporations do, and they talk about having a single view of the customer. It's a really big goal for very large corporations to actually have all their customer relationship management systems, their CRM systems, so they can have a single view of the customer. I say flip that around and have a view of the single customer. Really know exactly, Casanova wasn't that attractive. He wasn't even that great a lover. But he made every woman feel like she was the only woman in the world. Clinton could do it. Well, we won't go there. If you can take the Casanova concept and apply it to business, you're able to actually have that intimacy, and that's the critical thing you make.
Absolutely.
I've got a house guest at the moment who's got businesses all around the world. And he was saying about if he goes to a conference, he puts in the hashtag of the conference and follows all the tweets, and then works out from the tweets who are the most intelligent people at the conference and who will be most used to them. And then he follows them. And he's made very good business contacts just by doing that. So that's a different approach.
And by when you say the most intelligent, is that by what they actually tweet?
Well, what they're tweeting, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not hot in the corner or something. It's sort of
Excellent. And I guess, John, in a way, with your role, the international quarterback as well, that sort of online stuff you've seen for your athletes that you've looked after over the years, what a huge impact that's made and the changes that's made to their brand and their business as well.
Yeah, look, it definitely has, and I suppose but it's not being, and I think in line with what these guys are saying as well, it's not being so romanticised that you forget about what you're actually good at and what you have to do day to day. And it doesn't matter how much you pretty things up. It's whatever you've got, the core of what you've got still has to be real.
About small businesses tendering for work for the Commonwealth Games. I work with a lot of